Good morning to all participants gathered in this Zoom meeting. Thank you very much for logging on in time. And we shall start the meeting with a word of prayer and then progress from there. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning. Thank you for gathering us from the East and the West to be able to participate in this meeting called by the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. Thank you for all the public officers in this forum who are serving Kenyans and help us to remain committed and diligent to doing so, because we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. This meeting brings together Principal Secretaries, brings together boards and councils, both incorporated and unincorporated, bringing together the chairpersons, members of boards and councils, chief executive officers, together with their corporation secretaries or heads of legal. We welcome you to this meeting that is going to be take exactly 2 hours. And then we hope that we can be able, within these 2 hours, to cover a short program that is just designed to enable us to connect and reconnect from the previous sessions we've had. So just to talk about the protocols for this meeting, you're all aware by now, having attended previous sessions in this meeting, that you need to introduce yourself in the chat section. As you introduce yourself, and I see many of you have done so, kindly state your full name, your designation, as well as your institution. And kindly write your institution and all those in full, so that we are able to know which organization it is. Then also note that this is a webinar. This is done in a webinar format, and therefore all microphones are inactive, and only the microphones of those who are going to speak will be enabled. Then, for those who wish to speak during the plenary session, we would request that you raise your hand using the function at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a function there written raise hand. Kindly do so as the moderator advises you that we're approaching the plenary section. Then our moderator will send you a prompt, which you will click and agree to be upgraded to a panelist so that your microphone is enabled. And then we shall be able to know, and let us know in the Q&A section if you wish to say something or raise your hand. And then finally, the proceedings of this meeting, both the PowerPoint presentations, as well as this recording, will be sent to you. First of all, will be uploaded on the website of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, but they'll also be sent to you at your email addresses that you used to register to get onto this forum. And with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Arthur Osia, the Principal Administrative Secretary in the Executive Office of the President, to give you a word of welcome, even as he then invites the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service to be able to greet you before the program progresses. Welcome, Mr. Osia.
Thank you, Linda. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are. You are.
Okay, thank you. The Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, all Principal Secretaries present, all chairs and members of boards and councils present, and all Corporation Secretaries. Good morning. The Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, allow me to warmly welcome all our invited participants to this virtual session, bringing together the top leadership of our public service, which includes the Principal Secretaries, Chairpersons of boards and councils, Chief Executive Officers, and Corporation Secretaries. Sir, since the beginning of this month and throughout March, this office has been undertaking a deliberate and structured series of engagements aimed at strengthening coherence, unity of purpose, and sharpened focus across the public service. These engagements are intended to consolidate the gains made, reinforce our shared responsibility, and renew our collective resolve to serve the people of Kenya with excellence. The Chief of Staff, so far, this office has engaged extensively across the public service ecosystem. We have held consultations with our regulatory authorities and agencies. We have met the leadership of all public universities, including chancellors, vice chancellors, council members, deans, and registrars. We have also engaged the leadership of all our TVET institutions, including chairpersons of councils, chairs of boards, principals, deputy principals, and heads of departments. Equally, we have convened meetings with all heads of human resource function across the public service. We have also met public finance management officers, including heads of internal audit, finance officers, accountants, and supply chain officers. Beginning this week and concluding tomorrow, we are engaging all officers of all cadres across all duty stations countrywide. The plan is to sustain this sensitization drive, extending the same message to the leadership of our national government administrative officers as well as to our secondary chips. We are fully aware of the programs and priorities being implemented by this government. As leaders, we are expected to champion them, articulate them clearly, and confidently speak to their impact in every engagement with members of the public. This responsibility is particularly significant given the year, time, and the current operating environment, which calls upon all of us not only to deliver results, but also to demonstrate and showcase the progress being made in all corners of our nation. Above all, we must ensure that whatever we do translates into a living experience for our citizens, that they feel, they judge, they experience the public service as responsive, as caring, accountable, and fully connected to their needs and aspirations. I therefore urge each one of us to cascade this message throughout our respective institutions. The conversation must continue at every level until the change we seek becomes visible, tangible, and unmistakable to the citizens we serve. These engagements are also building momentum towards the upcoming Accountability Summit scheduled for the end of March. The exact date will be communicated in due course. With those remarks, sir, I now take this opportunity to invite you to deliver your opening remarks. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Principal Administrative Secretary Wanosia, the PSS that are with us, the chairpersons of state corporations, members of the boards and councils, for University Sec, board chairs for TTIs, CEOs and corporation secretaries that I have been able to connect with us, and the entire team that are online. Good morning. Today we have a meeting as they should to start us off in the new year. I hear that His Excellency the President declared that it will be a year of accountability, a year of impact, but not processes. A year that must see the acceleration of the transformation of our country that will hasten the shift from the current state to the first world. So we convene today to reflect and to ask ourselves as public servants, what are we supposed to do? What is it that is within our power, our authority, our jurisdiction, our mandate that we have to do to support the president's vision and the journey to Singapore. And therefore, we are welcoming all of you to the table. We are also encouraging all of us to have a candid discussion. We are also asking all of us to share what they feel, what they think. And also, we are asking all of us to take up this responsibility of transformation in our respective jurisdictions so that the fire will, the fire that has been ignited by the president, on all of us to shift from where we are to the first world is kept burning. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I want to again welcome you. Feel free, interact, and let us be part of this process in mind, in soul, and body. Welcome, welcome, and let us interact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would want to draw the attention of members within this forum who require the services of the sign language interpreter, who you can see there, Linda Chebet, carrying out the sign language interpretation for us. Thank you for that. And I would also want to welcome new entrants who have joined this space in the recent past. Having the protocols having been established, let us kindly ride on those protocols, and when called upon to speak, please go straight to your presentation or go straight to what you have to say. I'd like to now call upon the Principal Secretary, Mr. Alex Washira, to be able to make a comment at this very outset. He is the Dean of the Principal Secretaries. Welcome, PS.
Thank you, Linda, for the remarks. Mine is just brief, precise to the point, following the example that has been said by the Head of Public Service, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. And indeed, on our journey to Singapore, there are certain leadership principles required for accounting officers to move us from third world to first world. And we draw our lessons from Lee Kuan Yew, the founding Prime Minister of Singapore. And the founding Prime Minister of Singapore, I want to give three applications that he did implement in Singapore that ensured that Singapore moved from the third world to the first world. And the first strategy that he employed was the economic strategy, where he was able to shift his country from a developing port to a first world economy by investing in education and creating a stable, business-friendly environment. The second strategy that he did implement was the social policy. And this one, for those who may not have been converted, we need to learn from Singapore on the housing plan that His Excellency the President has started. And this was the social policy where he implemented long-term solutions like the Housing Development Board to ensure social stability through home ownership. So the country right now, what we are experiencing is one is a workshop. The country has been turned by His Excellency to a workshop where the skyline of Kenya is changing. When you go around the country, from Nairobi to Eldoret, to Nyeri, to Kisumu, to Wote, to Meru, to Mombasa, Lamu, Malindi, Watamu, Ukunda, everywhere, the country has been turned into a construction site. And this is one of the ways of taking us to Singapore. The third way is on crisis management. And because here we are assembled as principal secretaries, chair of boards, CEOs, and directors. Crisis management in one way or the other. Every day we will be able to handle crisis. And in crisis management, Lee Kuan Yew was able to take swift, decisive, and sometimes unpopular decisions and actions to ensure the long-term survival of the nation. So these are things that as leaders, we must be able to handle in one way or the other, because these are things that we will be handling one way or the other, and they'll come our way. Lastly, there are 6, 7 points that are critical in the journey to Singapore. Number one, and the head of public service, chief of staff and head of public service. I am making these remarks because I was supposed to make the remarks after, but we are hosting the deputy president in Nyeri, and so therefore I'll beg to leave immediately after. And one of the things that Lee Kuan Yew, the founding prime minister of Singapore, did is one, thinking ahead by making difficult decisions for collective good and fostering resilience, equipping his people with relevant skills and knowledge. This goes to the education system. This goes to skills management. This goes to succession management in all our organizations. We must ensure that we skill our people. We must ensure that we do succession management to ensure that our people and the organizations that we are leading, the people are well equipped. Number two is pragmatism over ideology. And this goes to focusing on work and ensuring that we achieve results, and always learning, because if it is not working, then you have to change your strategy to ensure that whatever role that His Excellency the President has given you, you must ensure that you deliver, and you must be willing to adapt to change, because the only thing that is permanent in this life is change. So whatever was working yesterday does not necessarily mean that that strategy will work. And so therefore, you must be pragmatic enough to ensure that you adapt to change. Number three, we as leaders must bring on board and must ensure that integrity and trust is with us. You cannot lead an organization if the people do not trust you and do not have integrity in you. And so therefore, we must ensure that to earn public trust, we must ensure that every day we earn this trust and we bring on board integrity. Number four, tenacity and resilience. You must never give up. Changing an organization is never easy. And sometimes you will always get into headwinds with the people, because people are accustomed. You must ensure that you are resilient enough to ensure that you focus on problem solving, learning from the mistakes rather than repeating them. Number five, meritocracy and talent. You must ensure that you bring on board merit. You award merit, and you must ensure that you're able to tap talents within the organizations, so that we bring on board organizations that have people who are merit and who have talents. Number six is system thinking, where you embrace complexity, collaboration, and ability to connect diverse issues and create a sustainable, long-lasting solutions. And last but not least, direct and authentic communications. Direct and authentic communication, being honest, frank, persuasive in communicating your goals, and even when the message is difficult. So you must ensure that all the time you have direct and authentic communication. Thank you, Linda. Those are my brief remarks. Asante.
Thank you, Bona PS. And just to let members know that PS is on the move and therefore couldn't put on his camera. However, if you wish to interact or see him, you can check the website of the State Department for Energy. You'll be able to see him there. And just to also mention that the theme for this meeting today is the Public Service Roadmap to Singapore. We have had His Excellency the President time without number, talking about Singapore as a reference point for our country. And therefore, the head of public service chose that today we should be able to focus on the public service roadmap to Singapore. And so that is today's theme. And that's why the PS was talking about Lee Kuan Yew with reference to Singapore. So with that, I also just want to then ask Duncan to put up the presentation so that we can proceed. And as Duncan does that, just to mention that we see all the many different state departments that have already logged on, and several principal secretaries whose names we shall recognize in due course in this meeting. So just to get on to the components of the roadmap to Singapore, which has been put together by the officers working in the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. So on the first slide, to make the point that the role of the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service in optimal performance in public service. So first of all, we are all aware about the executive order, which is the instrument that is used by the president, granted powers by the Constitution to order the affairs of government. This is how he organizes his government. And in that document, Executive Order number 1 of 2025, which I believe that you have all seen, and that is constantly on your boardroom tables and on your tables where you are, that document states that the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service is the administrative head of the Office of the President. In addition, he has the overarching mandate over all public entities, and on the behest of the President, supervises the entire public service on his behalf to ensure that there is the proper functioning of the government. In addition, the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service promotes ethics, good governance, efficiency, and effectiveness. And you have seen him carry out this role in the various meetings that have taken place online. Then, the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service is also responsible for the effectiveness of the public service. A very important reason why the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service has been convening these meetings. Next slide. And been carrying out meetings in the audit space, regulators, and on consequences. So when the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service assumed office, one of the things that he did at the very outset was to carry out a fact-finding mission to establish the state of the public service. And this is based on various parameters. Obviously, looking at what his predecessors had done and what preceding governments had done to be able to establish where the public service was. And in that fact-finding mission, this was done through comprehensive desk studies. The Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, together with his team, looking at various desk studies, looking at various reports, looking at different websites, and just looking through carrying out wide-ranging consultations. Some of you may have been called upon at the time to be able to offer him, the wisdom that you have, having been in government before. And so you may have been part of those consultations. And so as a result of this, the following programs were then designed under the leadership of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. So very quickly, the different heads of department will come in for a minute each to be able to just, highlight the key program being undertaken in their department and just be able to give you a snapshot. And the reason for this is for you to be able to know the people who are working in the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service and whom you may need to interact with from time to time and be able to know the programs that are being run. So I call upon my colleagues in the order in which we organized to be able to make the presentations for their respective departments. Starting off with FCPA, Susan Oyatsi.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. All protocols observed. One of the initiatives that the Head of Public Service is carrying out is the zero-fault audit, which is under the Department of Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance. The zero-fault audit is something that was launched in 2023, and it all talks about not to attract a single audit query from of the Audit General by being compliant to all existing laws and regulations. Here it is all existing laws and regulations is in bold. Some of them you make them yourself. And what is the purpose of this initiative? The purpose of this initiative is for prudent, responsible, effective use and management of public funds. Who are the target? The target people? The target people is all of us who are logged in this forum. And we are talking of the principal secretaries as accounting officers of state departments. We are talking about boards and council members and chairman members. All of those are target people who are very important in the zero fault audit. This time I want to use a plane. We are all going to Singapore, and in the plane we have the pilots, the captain, and the first officers, the flight attendants, the engineers. Those are the people who are logged in here. We have also people on the ground and security personnel. Those are the people who are logged in here. Nekesa, Fatuma, Akinyi, and Koech, and Wanjiku are in the plane as passengers, and they could be in the economy class, they could be in the premium class, they could be in the business class, they could be in the first class. They have paid taxes in various bands, so they expect you to reach them to Singapore. What has zero fault audit achieved? It has achieved a lot. From the time the head of public service launched the zero fault audit in the year 2023, June 2023, we were at 23% in terms of unmodified opinion. The year 2024, we are at 25%. There is a reduction in the adverse from 8% the same period to 4%. There is improvement in the quality of financial statement. This came from the Auditor General. I'm happy to report the accounting officers who have logged in attend the entrance and the exit meetings. That is very good. There's functioning public finance management standing committee and ministerial audit committees or board audit committees. All actors are aligned, and we hope to continue. We are in the plane, and everybody has a very important role to play for the people who are the passengers. Thank you.
Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service, riding on all protocols observed. My name is Alex Moneki, and I'll take you through the next two programs run by the Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service. The first being the revitalization and re-energization of regulatory authorities and agencies. And the purpose really for this program is to revitalize and re-energize all the regulatory authorities and agencies to perform optimally, and again, translating their mandates into tangible service delivery outcomes for Kenyans qualitatively, quantitatively, and timelessly. And the target group here has been all the regulatory authorities and agencies, a campaign that began in the year 2023. And this year, we're looking forward to the third annual conference of all the regulators in the country. And the gains that have been seen so far, the expected results, have been the increased visibility of all the regulatory authorities and agencies in the role that they perform as regulators. There has been a performance-based approach with biannual reports being submitted to the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service every October and April of every year. And again, the engagements that have been had continuously throughout the years has resulted to the peer learning and the pressure that peer pressure, the good kind of pressure that comes in trying to do what those who have succeeded have done. And the focus here really has been on delivery for impact, what the regulators are doing, how they're delivering their mandates, and what impact is being translated to the common mwananchi. The third program, Chief of Staff at Public Service, is the taking of prompt corrective action and the immediate administration of lawful and proportionate consequences for infractions. And the Dean of PSs did speak about some of the steps or actions that must be taken, some that will be painful, but necessary in the journey to Singapore. And the purpose really here is improvement of performance and efficiency in the public service to optimal levels. If all public entities take prompt corrective action, fix that which can be fixed before things get worse, correct, contain, then we will see so many things then happening the way they're supposed to happen. And the second element is the taking of immediate, lawful, and proportionate consequences. And we have had these engagements. The Office of the Chief of Staff has had week-long engagements with the entire public service, who is a target group. All public servants of all cadres in all workstations across the government. And this has been an engagement that has been continuous, and the results really that have been seen since this was launched last year is that there are instances and incidences being reported where prompt corrective action is being taken, as well as the duty bearers, persons or officers who are in positions of responsibility, administering lawful and proportionate consequences for infractions as and when they occur in the public service. With that, I thank you, and I invite my colleague, Dr. Leah Kasera.
Leah, if you're Dr. Leah, if you're speaking, perhaps unmute your microphone kindly.
Good morning. I am Dr. Leah Kasera, Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. 2026 is a year of execution, and we are moving fast and furiously into the first world. I wanted to share two reflections for the benefit of the members at this meeting. One is on the implementation of presidential directives, and I'm going to offer a few statistics on presidential directives as well as breaches in foreign travel. One, since 2022 October to date, over 3,000 directives have been issued by His Excellency the President. The collective value in terms of Kenya shillings of these directives is estimated at 11 billion shillings, Kenya shillings. 92% of the directives align with a better plan. And so what this means is that then they should have been budgeted for. 75% have been budgeted for since the year 2022. On implementation, 17% have been reported as complete, while 64% are still at different stages of implementation. We have 19% as directives, as a number for directives that are yet to be implemented, yet to commence implementation. Now, the role of MDAs as instructed and directed through Circular 11/2024 of the National Treasury instructs that presidential directives have to be prioritized or need to be prioritized accordingly during the budgeting process. 26% of the directives require collaboration of two or more state departments for implementation. These mostly are in the housing sector, mostly housing, road infrastructure, and mostly those that are being coordinated under defense. We will be sharing shortly in the next week, perhaps in the next couple of weeks, a metrics that then showcases the areas of collaboration or the directives that require the collaboration of the state departments. 40 principal secretaries have not submitted the details of the focal persons responsible for updating PIDMIS. There's a circular that went out earlier in the year that required to receive this information by the 4th of February. So 40 principal secretaries have not submitted the details of these focal persons, and we hope to receive this soon. On foreign travel, there have been notable breaches on travel guidelines. One is firming up of travel arrangements, including tickets and DSA, before approvals are obtained. And then you have the most serious breach of people traveling without due clearance. Following travel, there's also been submission of vague after-trip reports lacking clarity on anticipated impact. Extended stays the approved period, constituting unjustifiably large delegations. So we are sharing this for the reflection of members so that members can go back to the drawing board in terms of not only implementation of the presidential directives, but also on foreign travel. The mitigation measures that shall be put in place will include a communication, a circular that will go out on the 9th of February on lawful consequences for these breaches. There's a plan to cascade 4 teams to the level within the state departments to the level of UTSRPQ cadre of staff as from April 2026. Also, principal secretaries, accounting officers, and CEOs of state agencies are required to submit quarterly reports to the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service of staff travels that they have internally approved. Thank you. I'm going to invite my colleague, Wanjiko Wakogi, to take over the next presentation.
Good morning to all. I hope I can be heard. Duncan, if you have the presentation, you may project it, but in the interim, let me begin by introducing myself once again. My name is Wanjiko Wakogi with the Public Entities Oversight Office here in the Office of the Head of Public Service, previously with the Office of the Deputy President. As has been outlined by by Dr. Musumba, the Office of the Head of Public Service has this overall mandate of organization and coordination of government business. And so the Public Entities Oversight Office supports in undertaking this exceptional mandate by ensuring there is effective execution of government business through cohesive, aligned policy and operational elements. Now, you will note in standard practice, as you execute your mandates, you will find your execution may be hampered by policy aspects that may be within or across several ministries and departments that may be impacting some of the activities and operations you seek to undertake. Sometimes these inconsistencies are also at an operational level. So PAO's role mainly is to bring it together, create a greater coordination so that we are able to execute the aspects of these activities effectively and efficiently. So we will be working together as we do with the State Corporations Advisory Committee, the Inspector General Corporations, and the Efficiency Office in ensuring that we bring together all the aspects of governance reforms that are anticipated, all the aspects of project implementation and efficiency that are anticipated in this regard. So for now, some of the key focus aspects that we will be engaging with yourselves will include support for the big, heavy lifting items on public procurement reforms, supporting the Treasury's rollout of these key aspects on EGP, a greater focus on capacity building for procurement officers in particular, and support for any other of the interventions that have since been undertaken, such as the revamped supplies branch department. There'll also be some heavy lifting when it comes to SOE reforms. The Treasury is leading this, but the whole of government approach that is needed to execute this requires that we bring in that requisite support. This also includes any interventions towards operationalizing the Government-Owned Entities Act. The PAS, as well as the Head of Public Service, spoke about the Accountability Summit and the support that we need to give to ensure that the governance and corruption interventions are provided. So you will see a little bit more effort in that regard in bringing coherence to a lot of these interventions that have had difficulty in execution, whether it is a transport policy and its execution, professional bodies and their operations, the key governance issues that are around state corporations with the support of SCAC and the Inspector General Corporation. And overall, the intention will be to lead to the turnaround that is required. As PS Energy told us, the Lee Kuan Yew model of prioritizing pragmatism over ideology becomes then the running theme in this regard. And so these will be the engagements we'll be undertaking together with yourselves. I thank you very much. Linda, kindly guide on the next presentation.
The next presentation is from Mr. Simon Indimuli, the CEO of the State Corporations Advisory Committee. Bwana Indimuli, if you're here, kindly come on, and you'll be followed by the IG State Corporations, Mr. Warui, and followed by our colleague Jasper. So kindly just come in that order.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linda. Riding on already established protocols, I will just mention a few things. As they set up the slide, I'm the Secretary and CEO of the State Corporations Advisory Committee, which is a committee established under Section 26 of the State Corporations Act to provide advisory to the President and the government generally on the management and governance of state corporations. And we do that through the executive arm of the President, which is the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. I wish to mention a current undertaking that we have to review Mwongozo, the Code of Governance for State Corporations. As you are all aware, this is a very critical governance instrument that was issued by the President in 2015. And indeed, it has had great impact in influencing the governance space, both at the national government level, even at the counties, and even the private sector in Kenya that has voluntarily submitted to the provisions within that code. Various other countries have also come to benchmark from Kenya. And now that it's 11 years down the line since it was issued, we are undertaking a review, and the purpose of the review is to attune this wonderful document to global best practice, especially as we go the route of Singapore. There is so much that we have to benchmark from there, and also from other jurisdictions. There is also the emergence of artificial intelligence and the values-based governance that we need to embed in that document, and also to attune the same to the changed legal and policy environment. The target group, as we do the review, are all MDS, especially the PSS, who are very critical when it comes to governance of state corporations, the boards, the CEOs, and all other critical organs in the executives of the state corporations. We have already realized some gains as SCAC, working in collaboration with the Institute of Certified Secretaries and a university in the UK. We already did a study that actually did justify why the review is necessary. The study also identified critical gaps requiring refocus, and we have also developed the tools for collection or for collecting information from the stakeholders. And we are therefore asking that every one of us who is hearing me should be ready to contribute as we come to you with these tools to collect information. If I may digress just for a minute, Head of Public Service, allow me to mention a concern that we have as SCAC concerning the decision-making process in the boardrooms, especially the efficacy of the decisions being made. And as you are all aware, the law provides for statutory membership of principal secretaries, especially of the National Treasury, the Principal Secretary of the parent ministry, and the Attorney General as statutory members in the boards. I want to mention that the reason for this is not to create additional members in the boards, but the law has required that government presence should be there in boardrooms whenever board members are deliberating on issues. Most often, substantive members who are PSS or the AG don't attend these meetings. They have appointed alternate members, but there is a concern, especially on the preparedness to provide advisory to the boards in the boardrooms by the alternate members. Now, alternates are supposed to be very studious. They are supposed to be current and conversant with all relevant laws, government policy on all matters, government developmental agenda, especially the status of progress on various programs and projects being implemented by government, as well as also government directives that are given from time to time to the boards to implement. Unfortunately, what has come up is that oftentimes these alternate members of boards become sort of Alice in Wonderland when matters requiring government direction come up in boardrooms. I want to urge the alternate members that we have to up our game, because we are going to be much more strict when it comes to assessment of performance, especially of the alternate members. And if there are alternate members that are not up to speed on what government requires and what government is doing, then through the office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we shall be calling upon the substantive members to make replacements in those boards. Thank you very much.
Mr. Orui, please proceed.
Head of Public Service, Permanent Secretaries, Principal Secretaries present. Let me write on protocols already established because of time. I'm here to present the initiatives that have been established by the Inspectorate of State Corporations, and I hope I can be heard. The main one that we have done is the surcharge and restitution process that is under the Section 19 of the State Corporations Act. And the objective of this initiative is for the Inspector General to surcharge all persons who are responsible for occasioning the loss of public resources in state corporations and restore those funds to the said state corporations. We have the target group. They are in two categories. The first category is persons who are directly responsible for and are principally benefiting from the loss of public resources. And secondly, persons who are occasioning loss of public funds through negligence, misconduct, and misconduct in the performance of their duties. The first categories, we call them the direct beneficiaries, whereas the primary surchargees, and the second category is the secondary surchargees. And these two categories include directors and members of staff of the state corporations, who include the sometimes like the director general, the executive directors, members of the audit committees, and other categories of members in state corporations. Head of public service and members present, you'll realize that before 2025, there used to be no surcharges because there was no State Corporations Appeals Tribunal that came into existence in late 2025. And so far, we have filed cases at the State Corporations Appeals Tribunal relating to over 20 state corporations. And in total, we have about 68 cases involving different individuals in those state corporations. The most important aspect of this is that it has become become a major deterrence measures in state corporations from misappropriating funds of those state corporations. We have had instances where before we issue such as certificates, members of our staff who are involved in misappropriation have returned that money to state corporations involved. If I can give examples, we have collected about over $500,000 from the Communication Authority of money that had been given as earlier bonuses. When we raised that issue, the members quickly refunded that money. We have recovered over $1 million from New Pair for money that had been given for trips that never took place. The money had already been deposited in the accounts of the various people who had to travel. They have refunded that money. Coast Development Authority, we have recovered about 400,000 shillings from members, again, who had been given bonuses in instances when the corporation was making losses. They have refunded that money. And then the State Corporations Appeals Tribunal, there is one such a G who has deposited 1.8 million shillings as a security for cost for him to be allowed to file an appeal against such charge. So this initiative going forward will lead to a lot of diligence in applying state corporations funds. And also, I wish to mention that state corporations are also bringing cases to the Inspector General to surcharge in instances where they find it difficult for them to surcharge, and we have taken up those cases, and in due course we will assist all the state corporations to identify the subjects and people who to be surcharged. But I do not wish to stop this presentation before Head of Public Service. I report to you that much as these meetings have helped in improving governance in state corporations, we still have some state corporations and some members of boards of directors and chairmen who are still not yet up to standard, up to the level of expectation. And I would like to name some of these. We have the chair of Jomo Kenyatta Foundation, who is misusing his position by what Head of Public Service has always been saying, not to get involved in the management role. We have the new chair of Kenya Wildlife Service, who is barely a month old there. He is going to the office as early as 6:30 a.m. and also interfering with management. We have new pair, and we have quite a number of other state corporations. Because of time, I will not mention their names, all of them here. We have special meetings are still being conducted without the necessary approvals. We have written to several state agencies because of this. We also have promotions in certain state corporations, which to positions that do not exist in those state corporations establishment. That is also another area that we are concerned about. And lastly, Head of Public Service, again, majority of state corporations do not respond to requests made by the Inspectorate of State Corporations. And I would wish to mention that recently Parliament, the National Assembly, directed the Inspectorate to collate all court cases that state corporations are having. We wrote to the state corporations with a deadline of 27th February, and up to date, we have received less than 50 responses to our request. That means that when we get back to Parliament, Parliament will be blaming the Inspectorate as well as the Office of the Head of Public Service for not doing what it was asked to do. But it is because of those state corporations that are not adhering to the request. So, Head of Public Service, as you make your remarks, kindly address those issues forcefully so that we can continue improving the governance in state corporations. Thank you. And Leader, you can take us next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warui, for that. And I'd like to call upon my colleague Jasper to be able to make the brief presentation talking about the National Accountability Summit that will be taking place at the end of March, and to which the Head of Public Service would like the attention of all the entities in this forum to be aware of. So Jasper, are you on?
Yes, indeed I am.
Thank you.
The Head of Public Service, esteemed participants, good morning. I seem to be camera shy, and it seems that my camera, unfortunately, is not working. So I'm Buki Jasper. I support the Head of Public Service in legal management. And as a contextual background to the presentation on the hosting of the 2026 summit, I would like to highlight that we commence this year with a greater sense of and a positive sense of public sentiments across the country. And the hallowing gap that we had previously in regard to the public trust between the people, the institutions of state, had been remarkably narrowed. And this narrowing had largely emanated from His Excellency's State of the Nation address, in which he reset a new vision for the country, the road to Singapore. As part of the highlights of His Excellency's New Year address in the year 2026, he declared this year a watershed year and a watershed moment for the history of the country. And in his rallying call to the nation, the head of state proclaimed that in this year, leadership will be judged not only by promises that they make, but the performance delivered. The head of state further highlighted that leadership will be judged not by tenor or rhetoric, but the results that are measurable and the impact, the consequences of leadership has on the people. The head of state also highlighted that accountability does not only become the golden standard, but it becomes the measure in which every public intervention is undertaken. And therefore, arising from this and the early initiative by the president in the year 2014, in which he chaired an interbranch summit of all the arms of government, which then thereafter culminated in proposals by the judiciary under the National Council of Administrative Justice. That process will culminate towards the end of March in a summit that features all the state officers as well as public officers in all the three arms of government. CEOs, members, chairpersons of state corporations will be expected to participate in this seminal engagement. The engagement will be able to showcase what we have done as the three arms of government, individually and collectively, but more significantly, the gaps that exist in the interventions that we are making towards steering the country to a first world status, and with accountability being the foremost element of it. And therefore, the session then is expected to culminate in commitments that are undertaken by every one of the three arms of government. The unique feature of this is that these commitments will be what will form the baseline for future engagements, because this accountability summit that this year that we are at, being the inaugural session for the year 2026, will become part of our governance arc, in which every one of the interventions that had been mooted by my colleagues, from the zero fault audit to the package on consequences, including the accountability obligations under the state corporations framework. Every one of these obligations then crystallize in a yearly engagement with featuring the three arms of government. The session, as indicated by my colleague, Dr. Musumba, is scheduled towards the last week of March. Notifications will ensue. But so therefore, the question then becomes, how do ministries engage? How do state corporations and departments engage? A note will be ensuing from the head of public service, setting out the obligations of every ministry, and requiring every ministry to conduct a self-introspection and to file a report with the office ahead of the summit, detailing the achievements of the ministry, what we have done, the gaps that exist in the eyes of the ministry, and the commitments into the future. These commitments then will become the guiding charter in the next year's evaluation and subsequent years. The focus then is to be able to shift and to draw a line in the accountability arc, and to ensure that every one of the actors within the administration is able to take full responsibility, but not only in passing the buck, but taking responsibility going forward to the commitments that they undertake. My colleague, Dr. Musumba, those are the highlights of what the summit will feature. We expect to have representation, as highlighted in the slide before you, of the three arms of government, as well as representation from the Council of Governors and the independent offices and commissions. I most humbly submit, Ma'am.
Thank you very much, my colleague Jasper, who supports the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service from State House and with regard to the constitutional issues and legal issues there. Thank you very much for that. And before I proceed with the rest of this presentation quite quickly, I'd like to just bring to your attention that the chat section is open for conversation, for sharing of best practices. After we have introduced ourselves, then we can use the chat section for conversation and sharing of best practice with particular reference to today's topic, which is the public service roadmap to Singapore. Then I'd also want to mention the following principal secretaries who are in this forum and who work very closely with the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. We have PS Alex Washira, who spoke earlier on in this meeting. We have Honorable Shadrach Mose, who's the Solicitor General. We have PS Shadrach Mwadime, PS Karen Agengo, PS Charles Hinga, PS Dr. Engineer Festus Ngeno, PS Boniface Makoha, PS Mary Mudhoni, PS Mohammed Dagar, PS Gitonga Mugambi, PS Julius Korir, PS Stephen Isaboke, PS Teresia Mbaika, PS Esther Moria, PS Sylvia Museya, PS Umi Bashir, PS Anne Wangombe, PS Abubakar Hassan, PS Aden Miller, PS Mogosi Motari, PS Dr. Belio Kipsang, PS Roslyn Jogu, PS Jonathan Mweke, PS Dr. Patrick Mariru, PS Joel Arumonyang, PS Engineer John Tanui, PS Regina Okoth Ombam. And dear PSs, if you're in this forum and in the event that I've not mentioned your name, kindly let us know so that we are able to indicate the same. And of course, I hasten to add that everybody in this meeting is very important because your accounting officers, your decision makers in the different states, in the different agencies within this forum and play a very critical role. Corporation secretaries who guide boards and bring to their remembrance the things that they need to be able to do. So we appreciate all of you in this forum. So straight to the rest of the presentation, which is to say today's theme, the public service roadmap to Singapore. What are the tenets of the public service in Singapore? And we sought to find them out. Ladies and gentlemen, in this meeting, you can be able to find this very easily online. And we just thought to look because when the president talks about Singapore, it's important that we understand in our minds what he's talking about. Of course, Singapore means in Kenya that we're going to have integrity just like in Singapore. This is a foundational principle, requires honesty and accountability for actions, and includes maintaining a zero tolerance approach to corruption. Service, public officers are expected to serve with empathy, respect, and fairness, keeping the best interests of Singapore, and in this case, Kenya, and its citizens at heart. This involves going the extra mile to meet the needs of people. Ladies and gentlemen, in this forum, as you are informed, we have been having a week-long meetings with the entire of the public service, including all public officers of all cadres and from all duty stations. We have had members who have been logged in from different duty stations out of this country in the embassies abroad to the last man handling different stations in different parts of this country. And some of the things that emerge from that interaction is, the sorry state of some of the officers who work in these organizations, where, for example, grievances are not dealt with in a timely fashion. Some members of staff really have a difficult experience rather than having, a wonderful experience as public officers because as leaders in these organizations, we have not taken the time or the trouble to be able to address issues that can be addressed, issues that pertain to the workplace. And then as leaders, we have also perhaps not been empathetic of the different people who work with us. So this is going to Singapore, or the Singapore that the president talks about and that we aspire to go to, requires that we must serve with empathy, respect, and fairness. That is the public, that is externally and both internally. Excellence involves striving for the highest standards, continuous learning, And it requires being forward-looking to meet future challenges. One cannot say enough that one needs this quality, because every day in our organizations we encounter difficult situations, we encounter things that we haven't encountered before, and it requires us to be able to continue to strive for these highest standards and to continue to learn and foster, good learning and those measures. So next slide, fostering innovation. Another tenet of Singapore is one public service. It's a collaborative approach. The Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service has gathered the entire of the leadership of the state departments together with the agencies. And the purpose for this meeting, therefore, is for us to have one approach, have one philosophy, have one sense of morality as we move across doing our things in an efficient, effective, and one in a manner that we are able to account for. Therefore, this collaborative approach, led by His Excellency the President, and now being cascaded by the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, requires further cascading by yourselves to the publics that you serve, and requires further cascading up to the last man in the public service. And that, of course, requires sharing. It requires sharing of information, sharing of resources where possible. It requires leveraging, with one another to be able to do things well. I would just want to, for example, call out an example where the National Construction Authority has been working very closely with other organizations to be able to be aware where there are areas that require early warning of buildings that may collapse. And in many cases, so many of these have been saved because of that approach, working with partners, whether in the national or the county governments, to be able to do that. And using that approach, the National Construction Authority cannot be everywhere at the same time. But through the NGAOs, the National Government Administration Officers who are on the ground, they have been able to get information and be able to do so. And of course, the National Government Administration Officers are available. And this is something that the Principal Secretary, Raymond Omolo, will be able to articulate subsequently, are available for all of you, for the entire of government to be able to lean on. And this is also something that the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service will amplify soon, about how to work collaboratively with them. Meritocracy. Give the job to the right person so that the right person can be able to serve you. When you employ someone who does not merit the job, you end up having to do the job yourself as well. So it is being able to have a capable workforce that enables you to be able to achieve your goals and be able to do them. Rule of law. We are all aware, of course, that we have to uphold a fair and impartial legal framework, and treating all citizens equally, and within also our institutions and organizations. So as we carry out this public service, this is expected of us. Next slide. So we also took the time to be able to compare this with the core pillars of public service in Dubai. Many of you might have been able to visit there in an official capacity. And if not, these videos exist online. And this information we're talking about is also online and is available for all of us to be able to get pointers to, the places we need to be. Digital fast experience. And what they're saying in Dubai, as much as it is possible to make services accessible anywhere, anytime. And of course, it is very gratifying to be able to see how the e-citizen platform has been used to be able to bring the payment of these services and access to them in a one-stop shop. Obviously, over 5,000 services having been uploaded on this platform, and other ways in which, the different entities in this meeting today are meeting the needs of their people. So, for example, you'll recall that for fertilizers that were distributed when this administration came into being, you remember that you had to register with the nearest NCPB so that you can receive messages on your phone. And then this, of course, enables the government to be able to know how many farmers are there and what they're doing and reach them as quickly as they can, so that one does not have to travel far for any service. You can access it anywhere, anytime on your phone or through any other channels. Proactive services, being able to think ahead. So, for example, in Dubai, you'll find that when a child gets their birth certificate, the birth certificate has got information or the details required or the facilitation required for that child until they become parents. throughout their school, throughout when they get married, if they do, and all the way to when they become parents as well. So some of these things require that we sit down and think ahead and see how we can reduce the number of things that the number of steps there are in services to reduce them. Then we also have the integrated data and services one-stop shop. I think this is easy to understand. We have the one-stop shops, for example, at our borders, to try and make it easier for movement outside of the country, and of course to be able to work together with our sister countries. Then we have the customer-centric focus, designing services based on user needs, preference, and feedback, so that we don't end up with things that are not usable. You've spent funds, you've spent money, but they're not usable. In the Singapore that the president is talking about, it's got to be customer-centric, so that it meets the needs of wananchi. Efficiency and innovation, using AI and behavioral science to streamline processes. If there were time, we would run a poll right now to be able to know how many members in this meeting are AI proficient. That's important because the world is run by AI now. Every time we see on the internet adverts that are saying that if you're using AI only to search as a search engine, then you are underusing it. So of course we expect that all persons, starting from chairpersons of boards, starting from our principal secretaries, all the way to all the to the last man in these organizations, are able to use these sorts of technologies to be able to move ahead. Unified channels. This is, of course, to be able to provide a consistent experience across all platforms, so that when you're navigating from one platform to another, let's say you're dealing with the birth certificate issue and you're moving on to the ID issue, you're moving on to the passport issue, all in one transaction, you're able to unify this. Huduma Centers also provides another example for where this is usable. Next slide. So the vision of Singapore. The vision of Singapore that the president is enunciating, it requires order. When one steps out of their house in the morning, do you discern a rhyme and rhythm to things? Or do we see chaos when we step out of our houses? So if there's one thing that Singapore is defined by, it is order. So in the work that we do, the mandates that we carry out, is that order evident in the provision of services to citizens? Are we also orderly in our offices? Predictability. One has to be able to set their clock by what government has promised. So when we say that the results of exams will be out on a particular day, they need to be out on that day. When HELP says that money will be given to students on a particular day, then that money should be given on that day. Equally, when pension, the pesa ya wazee, they call it pesa wazee, I think on the street, in the streets rather, when they say the pension, the money will come in people's phones on a particular day, it needs to come on that day. Then dependable and reliable, that government will come through. Government will come through when we are at our happiest and at our lowest and our highest. So for example, during disaster management incidents, we should be able to know that government is going to come through, whether it is floods, drought, or hunger. That is in Singapore, the Singapore we are going to. Government needs to be dependable and reliable, and government is you and me. Government is all of us gathered in this Zoom session. Then Singapore requires a can-do attitude, that you'll be able to walk through walls, and that at the first sign of an obstacle, you're not going to give up and you're not going to sit and fail to think about how to negotiate around that obstacle. Being in Singapore requires that you can be able to walk through the walls to be able to serve Kenyans, walk through the walls to be able to come up with innovations and creations that are able to meet the needs of Kenyans. What about a winning attitude? That feeling an athlete has when they're just about to touch the tape at the finish line. We need to be poised to cross that finish line regardless of the obstacles. A winning attitude, that when you're with your peers, you want to be able to get ahead. When you measure yourself against your peers, like it was mentioned with the program on the revitalization and re-energization of regulatory authorities and agencies, when you look at your peer, you want to be able to measure yourself and have an idea that today, this person is better than me in this, but tomorrow I'll be better. And for that matter, you need to chase your own shadow, that today you reached a certain mark and that tomorrow you must outstrip that mark. In Singapore, The Singapore that we are going into, it calls upon us to take responsibility. Can you render an account of yourself? What have you done with the trust that you have been trusted with? What have you done with the human resource? What have you done with the assets that have been entrusted to you? And so therefore, one has to be able to render an account of themselves in Singapore. And as you saw from my colleagues who made the brief presentations and interventions earlier on, the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service is already on the road to Singapore through the programs that he has been putting out. And this is also true for all of you who are in this, who are in this Zoom meeting, that in many, many different ways, you are on the road to Singapore, except to say that in this meeting, the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service wanted to be able to emphasize the things that we need to be able to have and to take into account on this road. Next slide, please. This is the last submission in this particular series of going to Singapore before we call the Principal Secretary for Economic Planning, Mr. Boniface Makoha. I just want to say that going to Singapore in tracking, monitoring, and evaluation of performance as a key accelerant to going to Singapore is extremely important. When we started off with the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service in this office, one of the things that he was keen on was to be able to know and understand every entity in this Zoom. And given the time and the resources at the time, we had to be able to look for different ways and methods to do so. And we started off with an Excel sheet. And these are what we're calling simple methods. The Excel sheet that has all the entities captured in the executive order, name by name, the accounting officers, the cabinet secretaries, and then the CEOs for these entities. And what was an Excel sheet just capturing that particular information has grown to become so big as the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service interacts with you. When he calls for meetings and your attendance is then logged, when you submit your documents that he asks for from time to time, this is logged onto that Excel sheet, and all the various interactions that take place between his office and yourself are logged onto this Excel sheet. And this is the reason why when you interact with him, when you do meet him, he has some information about, all the entities that are within the public service. Today, that Excel sheet has grown to become so big, and it is soon going to become unwieldy and not comfortable or easy to use. It serves the purpose now because we are able to pull out information about each entity when required to facilitate the meetings between yourself and himself. And this is not just to be able to say that you didn't attend this meeting or you didn't attend that meeting, but it's to be able to facilitate the interaction between yourselves and him. And we found it very useful. Very soon, we're going to have to go on to advanced methods, to use technology and AI, to be able to use apps, to be able to use programs, computer programs that exist to be able to capture this information in a database that works. But other than that, we have, so what it is that the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service is doing, he's tracking. That is tracking his interaction with the public service, monitoring that, for example, in the area of audit, the audit report for financial year 2020, 2021, 2023, 2024, 25, 26, your score at that time was you had an adverse or disclaimer report. Moving to the next financial year, you came to the modified opinion, and now you have the unmodified. So this enables that kind of tracking and the monitoring, and then evaluation of performance. The Head of Public Service will inform you how he's going to do this in his speech in relation to being able to call external persons to be able to evaluate how the public service is doing in terms of overall performance and also performance from the perspective of the public. So he's going to explain more about that when he comes on board. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to me, even as you now bring it home in your entity. How are you participating on the journey to Singapore? What are you doing to bring that Singapore vision and to make it a reality? And I now call upon the PS, Mr. Boniface Makoha, to be able to make his presentation, which is about planning for Singapore. Karibu, Bwana PS. Thank you.
Asante sana, Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service,
Bwana PS, there is feedback on your machine.
Sorry.
Are there other machines perhaps where you're seated that are on?
Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Is it okay?
We're still getting the feedback, Bwana PS. Perhaps if there are other machines in the room where you're seated that are on, they could be muted so that you only have yours open. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you once again, Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, PS colleagues, and all other members online. Good morning. I just want to start off by echoing, maybe to introduce myself. My name is Boniface Makoha, the PS for Economic Planning. I want to start off by echoing what has been said, and I'll handle maybe a presentation in three key areas, answering three questions. One, I'll be able to answer, you can just leave the first slide. I'll be able to answer what is the second, that one. What is the problem we have? Then how do we plan for change? That is, plan to take us towards Singapore. And then finalize with the 7 things that we need to do as lessons learned from Singapore. First of all, one of the presenters talked about leadership be judged by results and impact. This is very true. This needs a plan, and not only a plan, but fidelity to the plan, which is a core principle that we can learn from Singapore. In Kenya, we do not suffer from a shortage of vision documents. We have long-term blueprints, sector strategies, physical frameworks, and reform agenda. But what we struggle with is the disciplined alignment between planning, budgeting, and execution. So the question we have to answer as we head to Singapore is whether our institution behave as the plan is supreme. Allow me just to start by highlighting the first principles, just to explain what planning is and economic planning. Planning, from the point of State Department, is a deliberate organization of scarce resource over time to achieve defined objectives under specific constraints. And this planning requires prioritization. It requires sequencing. It requires trade-offs. In planning, every shilling that you allocate is a shilling denied to another intervention. And therefore, we have to plan. Without planning, decisions are reactive. But where there is a plan, decisions are strategic. What is economic planning? Economic planning now goes a step further. It looks at the coordination of the physical policy, the public investment, the industrial strategy, the infrastructure, etc. The economic planning should not act as a command control. It is a strategic alignment, should be a strategic alignment. Some of the questions that we ask in economic planning is which sector will drive productivity? What investments unlocks competitiveness? What is affordable? What must be sequenced first? what measurable returns justify continuation. What do we learn from Singapore? How do they do their plan? Because this is where we want to go, and it's good to look at how do they do their economic planning. In Singapore, planning is organized along a logic that guides things. Budgets, operationalize plans, they do not override. And the planning that we also do here, which is similar to Singapore, is that economic planning comes in two levels, macro and micro. I'll touch on the macro and then finish with micro, and then highlight the 7 things that I believe we need to do on our road to Singapore. At macro level, effective economic planning operates on 3 layers. And layer number 1 is the long-term strategy. Singapore planned decades ahead on the land use, the use of the port, the airport, etc. So long-term plan is key, which you also do here. Second is the medium-term plan, that is the physical realism, that every 5 years here, sector priorities are costed against revenue projections. So we have to ensure that public investment that is sequenced within the physical limits. This is what happens. And debt sustainability is non-negotiable. Projects that enter into pipeline only if they demonstrate economic viability. And then the third layer of macro planning is the annual budgeting. That is the annual budget discipline. The annual budget is not negotiable on terms of which projects should come in. It aligns with the long-term plan. On macro, cannot support itself alone. So macro succeeds only when now the next level, the micro execution is there, is displayed. At our level, the agency level, economic planning becomes operational. Each of the parastatal, each of the state department must answer what national productivity constraints do we solve. So as you look at the plan at your level, you should be answering that. Are we solving any national productivity constraint? How does our investment increase GDP? How does it increase job creation? How does it bring efficiency in public service? What measurable public return justifies our budget? These are questions that we need to ask at macro. And what happens if we fail? In Singapore, agencies have their clear mandate. Performance indicators are tied to national competitiveness. Duplication is eliminated. Underperforming projects are terminated very early. And institutional courage is what rules the day. Macro planning, therefore, at our level, must feed into macro outcomes. We have always to move away from activity-based implementation to result-based implementation, where we ask ourselves, how does this activity contribute to our strategic plan? How does it feed into the targets we put up in the PCs? And what is the overall plan in terms of when we implement this thing? So that needs to be done. So the quick question that I want to probably ask and provide a few leads is, so what must we do to move this country towards Singapore? I've highlighted 7 things that we need to do at our level. First, we must treat the National Development Plan, the long-term plan, as binding. It must be binding, not ceremonial. The corporate strategy and all other strategies must derive from them. The PC targets we set, everything must be aligned with the long-term national development plan. That is number one. Number two, we must reach a place where we reject attractive projects, but which are economically unviable. Yeah. Why? Because leadership requires professional courage, and we have to do this. The cost of approving a weak project is borne by the taxpayers and the next generation. Number three, we must institutionalize rigorous cost-benefit risk analysis before committing public resources. Here, what I mean is that feasibility studies, this should not be just a formality. It is a safeguard of physical sustainability. So we have to institutionalize that. Number four, what we need to do is align your performance or our performance metrics with productivity growth, export competitiveness, job creation, and physical prudence. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, visibility is not impact. Impact is measurable. So we have to come to that realization. Number five, let's enforce accountability. Accountability in the sense that stalled projects, cost overruns, and underperformance cannot be normalized. If this is normalized, then accountability misses to be accountability. These things, when they happen, they are symptoms of institutional failure. So anytime we have to work and work around the clock to ensure we do not have the cost overruns, we do not have stalled projects, we do not have underperformance. Number six, we must eliminate Thank you. We must eliminate a whole of government approach. We must eliminate duplication so that we have a whole of government approach that must be operationalized, not rhetoric. And finally, seven, we must safeguard integrity. Investor confidence depends on how predictable we are, how transparent, and rule-based decision. Therefore, as I end, colleagues and all that are online, Singapore transformation was not a destiny. It was a discipline. It was institutional coherence sustained over decades. Kenya possesses talent. We possess market, we possess entrepreneurial energy and regional leverage. What we must now build is consistency, learning that governs budgeting that enforces strategy, and execution that delivers measurable results. I beg to end there and say thank you. I had to switch my speaker off so that I avoid the echoes. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana PS. We've had you loud and clear. We've had you loud and clear. And I just want to mention the names of three other PSs who are in this forum that had not been mentioned before. PS Fikirini Jacobs, PS Cyril Odede, and PS Joseph Mbogwa. Now, I would like to seek permission from the Head of Public Service whether we shall be able to have just a plenary section, a plenary for just 5 minutes before he comes on, because I am aware that we are pressed for time and that we have a hard stop of 11 o'clock. So if we can just have 2 interventions, Collins, then we can be able to perhaps continue the conversation in the chat section. And as Collins comes in to be able to bring in those 2 interventions, I would just like to point out a comment that has been made by someone in the chat section, Mr. Elijah Mwenga, who says that at the Open University of Kenya, they have short courses on AI and all members in this forum are welcome to that. Collins, please. Two interventions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. I rely on the protocols already established. I wish to call upon just 2 people will have the chair to represent the chairpersons. We'll have Mr. Ugaz Mohammed, that is the chairpersons of the Capital Markets Authority, because we've had good sessions and we'd want to get feedback from you. as the journey to Singapore from takeoff to touchdown is one that is engaging. This journey should be turned into a conversation, the conversation that should be undertaken with excellence. So let's start with Ugas Mohammed in just exactly 1 minute, and I'll be monitoring time. Mr. Ugas Mohammed.
Thank you very much. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, all protocols observed. I just want to, on behalf of the chairpersons of the state corporations, thank you for this engagement. Public service roadmap to Singapore. I think that sets the tone at the top, and we are appreciative. We are appreciative that this forum brings together the top leadership of the MDAs. We're mandated with steering these institutions towards excellence in service delivery with integrity and adherence to the law. They say that take care of the minutes and the hours will take care of themselves. So we're the lowest level of engagement, which makes sure that the top also works. So I think on that behalf, we say that we are very appreciative. Also, as we walk this journey towards accelerated transformation, we are inspired by His Excellency the President and the relentless efforts he's putting in making sure that the country is transformed. And ours is to cascade the same to others. Ours is to collaborate and create synergies. Sure that what's being said here is implemented within our institutions. Once again, we're called upon to enhance our collective commitment to effective governance, accountability, and improved performance in the public sector. We are very aware of the various initiatives that we've been going through, from the revitalization of the regulatory authorities and agencies, zero-fault audits, metrics of lawful consequences in public service, and the implementation of the same, and the various initiatives, including the ones we have. So ours is just to say, on behalf of the state corporations, that we are aligned, fully empowered, and we would like to just to follow what has been said from the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for keeping time, Chair. On behalf of CEOs, I wish to welcome Madam Esther Ngari, that is the CEO National Standards Council, otherwise known as KEBS, just in a minute as well to give her reflection.
Thank you very much, Collins, Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, and all the protocols observed. Good morning. For the CEOs, we are very appreciative for the sessions. Specifically, today's session was very critical towards the journey to Singapore. And one of the most important role as CEOs in our journey to Singapore is to institutionalize discipline so that excellence becomes automatic and not accidental. Because once discipline is embedded, efficiency will follow. And once efficiency follows, trust will grow, and trust is the currency of first world institutions. But discipline that outlives the individual leader. So as CEOs, we are looking at ensuring discipline in our institutions is actually institutionalized. And the discipline that actually translates into setting non-negotiable standards of integrity, demanding measurable performance, building systems that reduce discretion and increase predictability, and making accountability normal and not exceptional. So we are looking, because we have been given the tools to work, we have the support from the top, we have the tone from the top, we commit to work towards ensuring that our institutions are aligned and we move towards Singapore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. At that point, I wish to call upon Mr. David Tanki on behalf of the board members, that is the director at Kenya Tourism Board. Mr. David Tanki, the floor is yours for a minute. Please unmute your microphone. Unmute your microphone.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I also want to ride on the protocols established to thank the Head of Public Service for a job well done. I think listening to the various speakers, there is evidence that there is great talent in that office, and we truly appreciate. I also want to comment the journey to Singapore. For sure, the way the Office of the Head of Public Service has streamlined government is quite phenomenal. There is a lot that has been done in literally the things that affect mwananchi. When you talk about healthcare, you talk about housing, you talk about education, you talk about agriculture. I think these are various things that have been done and properly articulated by government, and we are very, very excited to be a part of this great journey. The one thing that I will want to mention is the continuous need for highlighting critical metrics that have materially improved. I know in our various agencies, there are many ways that this can be achieved, and for sure we are working on it. I do know that no matter how good something is, we need to talk about it and talk about it so many times. For example, the Thika superhighway has been in existence for some times, but there are Kenyans that have never seen it. There are Kenyans that may never see it or may never even use it. So if you don't talk about it, then nobody knows there is even a superhighway there. So I think it is important that as agencies, as ministries, as government, we keep talking about the good things that have been done and repeat them, because we are told in the good book that faith comes by hearing. And we want to continue talking about it until even those that don't have faith, they develop faith because they have heard it so many times. Otherwise, from as a board member, I want to appreciate the fact that we are getting good guidance. We are getting guided in the direction that we need to take very appropriately, and it is quite impressive. And I should say, even before I sign out, that I have heard from more than one person who is privy to the working of this current administration and the previous administration, that there is a lot of streamlining of government that has happened. So from where I sit, for sure, I think moving at the speed we are moving, there is no doubt that we will arrive at Singapore. So I want to wish all of us the best and to encourage us, since I am a member of the Kenya Tourism Board, I wish to encourage all of us to make sure that you plan your holidays well. Make sure that in the coming Easter, take a holiday, go somewhere, and tembea Kenya, because this is our country. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director. And now, on behalf of the Corporation Secretaries, I wish to welcome FCS Diana Sawe, who's the Corporation Secretaries at Insurance Regulatory Authority. Madam FCS, please, the floor is yours for a minute.
Thank you very much, Collins, and good morning all. I wish to ride on all the protocols that have already been established, and on behalf of all the Corporation Secretaries, to thank the Head of Public Service and all the esteemed presenters for the information and insightful knowledge that has been given. The message is crystal clear that good governance is not procedural, it is transformational and strategic. And therefore, we leave this meeting entrusted with responsibility to always ask ourselves the constant question of what we should do within our mandate to ensure that we spur realization of the Singapore vision in the roles that we play, so that this vision can be a fulfilled dream for us as a country. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Madam FCS. And to cap off that session, I wish to welcome PS Fikirini as the final person to give his reflection. Then we'll return back to Dr. Linda Musumba. PS Fikirini, in just a minute, kindly.
Thank you so much, and a lot of appreciations to the Head of Public Service and the Chief of Staff for his continued guidance in this public service. One important thing which I think is rather pragmatic in this journey to realize the first world is a software called mindset shift or mind education. I think all countries that drove on the road from third world to first world were able to realize this, I think, after taking very, very serious the issue of community and public responsibility. They accepted to be part of the change. I think while our government is investing a lot in programs, in developments, I think one thing which we should not bury our head in the sand and assume or take for granted is the fact that our big population deserves to have a mindset shift. We need to see, a lot of positivity in what we do, in our approaches to public service, either individually and even collectively. I think that will really fuel the engine, which really needs to take us to the first world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, PS, for keeping time. We wish to inform that we continue answering the questions in the Q&A. So for any reactions, for any proposals, please put your questions and reactions on the Q&A sessions, and we'll continue to answer them. Back to you, Dr. Linda Musumba.
Thank you very much, Collins, and for all the interventions that we've had. And just as I welcome the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service to make his remarks, I'd like to be able to register that 3 PSs who have sent their apologies to the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service include PS Ouma Oluga, PS Raymond Omolo, PS Mohammed Liban, who already communicated, but then I think it's important to be able to identify that here. One other thing that's of course important to note is that there are behaviors that are not compatible with Singapore. These are in our slides and you'll be able to get them in the presentation that you get, because when we're in Singapore, there are certain things we're not supposed to be doing. So as I welcome the Head of Public Service to speak, sir, you'll find that in the chat section, so many talented people serving as CEOs, as corporation secretaries, as board members, as chairs of boards. When you look at the comments in the chat section, as I know you've been looking at them, you'll realize that the journey to Singapore is doable because of the amazing talents that we're seeing in the chat section. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linda Musumba. All principal secretaries present, all chairpersons and members of boards and council present, all chief executive officers present, and all corporation secretaries and heads of legal present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are gathered here today, as we had said earlier, to establish a common understanding so that the journey to Singapore will be easier, will be faster, because we are the people who are supposed to be driving country towards status. So over the last 3 years, and all of us are aware, we have deliberately moved from fragmented oversight to structured governance across state corporations. As a result of these reforms, we are beginning to see a semblance of coherence across government, ministries, departments, and state corporations are increasingly aligning to common national priorities rather than operating in silos. Many of the dysfunctional elements that previously characterized our governance, accountability, and transparency space are beginning to dissipate. We are seeing a number of gains, including the following. One is we are seeing audit engagements have intensified, and responsiveness to oversight has improved significantly compared to previous cycles. Revenue performance in several institutions has increased or strengthened due to tighter internal controls and improved compliance systems. We are seeing governance restructuring and board revitalization have restored strategic directions in institutions that had previously drifted from their mandates. We have had conversations around pending bills, fiscal exposure, and financial sustainability are now mainstream governance issues, not afterthoughts. Oversight engagements are more analytical now and less defensive than before. Performance is increasingly viewed as a shared responsibility across cadres, not merely a contractual obligation of the CEO. Informal practices are giving way to defined systems and documented procedures. We are seeing now passive oversight is being replaced by a more active interrogation of performance and risks. Transparency is increasingly procedural and not discretionary. Accountability is becoming measurable, not rhetorical. So many public servants are beginning to internalize what truly means to serve within a disciplined and accountable public service. They are now aware that they are part of the governance machinery. The culture of ambiguity is gradually being replaced by structured documentation and clearer decision trails. While challenges remain, the direction of reform is clear and encouraging. This shift is cultural, and culture is what sustains transformation. When His Excellency the President references benchmarking against Singapore, he is speaking about consolidating this emerging coherence into disciplined, predictable, and high-performance institutions. The foundation has been laid. The task now is to institutionalize these gains so that they become consistent and irreversible. We have several pillars of Singapore that will depend all the relevant parameters that will make us move faster, transform coherently, and become fast to work. And the first one is about efficiency, ladies and gentlemen. Simply put, time discipline in public institutions, for example. Efficiency means that time commitments made by governments are honored consistently and across all levels of administration. Efficiency requires that every process has a clearly defined start point, processing timeline, and completion point. If an institution commits to a 14-day turnaround, then 14 days must mean 14 days, not subject to follow-up. A predictable public institution reduces economic friction and strengthens national competitiveness. That is one critical cog in pursuit of our journey to Singapore. Inefficiency increases the cost of doing business in Kenya and also weakens investor confidence. Repeated process delays must trigger internal review and a prompt corrective action mechanisms. If we have to move faster, we need to be efficient, we need to be disciplined. If time discipline becomes culture across state corporations, our administrative environment becomes more stable, more trusted, and more investment ready. I'm only talking about time because many a times people think that the journey to Singapore requires very expensive and complex investments. No. We pick the simple things first, and then the rest will come. After efficiency, we look at effectiveness, which will solve Kenya's real challenges. Every state corporation, as you're aware, was created to address a specific national challenge. Effectiveness requires measurable and positive improvement in addressing that challenge. Therefore, effectiveness demands data-driven leadership. And therefore, boards must ask themselves, what changed because we exist? What has changed? Since you came into being as a chair, as a CEO, as a PS, as a head of legal services, what is this that has changed because of your existence in that institution? Reports of meetings held, stakeholder forums, and workshops are not impact. And the president really said, this year is not a year of processes, but this year is a year of impact. We must see clear, measurable impact to the citizens that we serve. The third element is what we call accountability. Clarity, ownership, and consequence. Accountability means every decision, action, and resource deployed in each state corporation can be traced to a responsible office and a documented process. It requires clarity of mandate, clarity of delegation, and clarity of reporting lines. Boards must exercise real fiduciary oversight, not ceremonial endorsement. Management must therefore take ownership of institutional performance and not shift responsibility to external constraints. You have to be accountable. You have to tackle external constraints because it is part of the ecosystem that you are working in. Borrowing from Singapore, all our state corporations and state departments must showcase financial discipline, procurement integrity, performance tracking, and also risk management. Accountability requires timely reporting, accurate documentation, and transparent decision trails. We must have predictable accountability that builds institutional credibility, both within government and with the citizens and investors. The fourth strand is the issue of cutting wastage, and by so doing is protecting development capital. We all know that our fiscal space, unlike that of Singapore, is finite. Wastage reduces our development capacity. We cannot develop our state corporations or state departments. We cannot develop if our own state departments, state corporations continue to incur avoidable expenditure and expenditure that does not result to impactful outcomes in our communities. Expenditure must directly support mandate delivery. Inflated variations, idle projects, underutilized assets, and unnecessary consultancies weaken fiscal credibility. And in addition, when a project cost escalates repeatedly without value addition, public trust erodes. Rationalization must therefore be deliberate, including role clarity and mandate alignment. We must all appreciate that cutting wastage strengthens investor confidence and microeconomic stability. The fifth strand of effectiveness and efficiency is productivity, value per shilling, value per officer. Productivity must measure what each shilling and each public officer delivers in tangible value to the nation. As benchmarking against Singapore, one of the core lessons is disciplined productivity in the public sector. Digitization must increase throughput and efficiency. It must not merely shift administrative format from paper to screen. Departments must track output per unit of time, per week, per quarter, and per project cycle. Performance reviews must identify stagnation early and not wait for annual summaries and the performance must trigger structured improvements plans with defined timelines and accountability. And therefore, a productive public sector strengthens competitiveness, improves service delivery, and accelerates national development. The sixth strand is citizen-centric service, equal treatment, predictable experience. Public service must feel the same regardless of geographical or status. Service requirements must be clear, published, and accessible. Let not Kenyans struggle to access materials, and yet we are seated comfortably in our offices. Let us get down to where they are and offer services. Turnaround times, as I have said earlier, must be realistic and monitored. These include the compliant resolution mechanisms in our state corporations that must at all times remain functional and be tracked. For example, if citizens repeatedly report the same bottleneck, that indicates a systemic weakness. Informal facilitation practices must be eliminated through system designs or redesign. Citizens' dignity is a core performance indicator. The seventh strand is the issue of zero tolerance to corruption. And I want to call it systemic integrity. Zero tolerance to corruption, which is equivalent to the highest level of integrity. Corruption begins where discretion is excessive and oversight is weak. Conflict of interest declarations must be real and enforceable. Leadership must model ethical discipline visibly. Small tolerated shortcuts institutionalize larger misconduct, and predictable enforcement protects institutional credibility. The eighth strand that we need to be very keen to embrace is prompt corrective action, acting before escalation. Institutional risks must be addressed at the earliest signal. Audit flags, revenue drops, cost overruns, and even project delays must trigger immediate review. Waiting for year-end reports weakens oversight. Corrective action plans must have timelines and accountability. Early correction prevents public crisis. The ninth strand is administration of lawful and proportionate consequences. This is what we've been driving at for the last 6 months. Discipline must be consistent, lawful, and timely. Due process must be respected, but indecision must not masquerade as fairness. Consequences must reflect severity of misconduct. Selective enforcement erodes morale and creates internal cynicism. Predictable consequences deter misconduct more effectively than public outrage. Excellence must also be rewarded. Accountability includes positive reinforcement. The 10th strand is leadership engagement and institutional coherence. A critical question we must ask ourselves as leadership of state corporations and state department is this: why are we not consistently speaking to our own staff across all levels? If officers are raising fundamental concerns during these virtual sensitization forums, it suggests that internal engagement within our institution is not yet sufficient. And it is true we've had feedback from our entire public service, all levels, that majority of public servants are inaccessible, they are not friendly, they are not even in official offices. They have created parallel offices called safe houses, and they only come to the official offices 1 or 2 hours, and there they go for the whole day, the whole week, the whole month. And therefore, their subordinates don't see them. Members of the public cannot treat them, and it becomes an issue of communication. So we cannot effectively enforce standards, demand efficiency, or administer consequences if we have not first engaged, clarified expectations, or listened. Some of the feedback emerging from officers clearly indicate that gaps still exist in communication, alignment, and internal understanding of reform priorities. We must seal and break the apparent loop where leadership assumes staff understand expectations while staff operates without structured guidance and feedback. Action must follow engagements, but engagement must precede action. If we institutionalize structured internal dialogue within our state corporations, enforcement becomes easier, resistance reduces, and reform becomes collective. The 11th strand in this journey to Singapore are matter systems, procedures, and processes. And we call it, if you have systems, procedure, and processes, it is a process of making it stick. Whatever you are doing, it comes documented, it has a system, it has a procedure, and it has a process. So making it stick. One of the clearest lessons from Singapore is that systems, processes, and procedures must not merely exist on paper. They must work consistently, regardless of who is in office. Rules must outlive personalities. When procedures are bypassed for convenience, when timelines are flexible without justification, or when enforcement depends on personalities, institutional credibility erodes and corruption risk increases. So what is the way forward? Ladies and gentlemen, this office that I'm leading will shortly commission 2 independent evidence-based surveys across the public service to be undertaken by a reputable research institution. One is to check on the impact and uptake survey to assess the level of awareness, adoption, and measurable impact of the reform programs and transformation initiatives that have been rolled out within the public service. The second survey is a nationwide public perception survey to evaluate citizens' experiences, perception, and interaction with our state departments and state corporations, focusing on service delivery, responsiveness, efficiency, integrity, and overall public trust. We have to do this because we have to be citizen-centric and also to be accountable to the people of Kenya and to ensure that we know what our customers feel and what they want us to change or improve, or even to hear their commendation on a good job well done. The 12th is institutional responsibility and immediate action. Beyond measurement, each state department and state corporation must now clearly identify and document the following: the immediate reforms and corrective action they will undertake. You need to check your State Department and your state cooperation so that you identify the immediate reforms and corrective actions you will undertake. You need also to identify the service delivery improvements that you will accelerate. You need also to check on the efficiency measures that you will institutionalize and also the accountability mechanisms that you will strengthen. On strategic communication of success, we must confidently communicate our progress. Many transformative programs and impactful initiatives are taking place across government, yet the public remains unaware simply because we do not consistently tell our story. We are not visible. Let us therefore stand up, disseminate information, and articulate our successes clearly and consistently. Every engagement, whether internal fora, public events, media interactions, or stakeholder meetings, is an opportunity to inform citizens of the work being done in their name. We must not only do the work, we must also demonstrate the work. As I close, I want to thank all of us for a tremendous improvement that we've seen over the last 3 years. We've seen confidence coming back to public service. We've seen decisions, hard decisions that are made by the boards, which were unheard of. We've seen CEOs driving the process of implementation effectively. We've seen our principal secretaries taking charge of the state departments, rolling out policy, interpreting policy, and having effective supervision across their state department. We are now at the stage, ladies and gentlemen, of consolidating our gains, sharpening our tools, reorganizing ourselves so that we can march forward to the next level. This office, my office, is ready to support each and every one of us, ready to engage, ready to convene, ready to intervene whenever there are challenges across state corporations or state departments, ready to guide, ready to come up with an enabling environment for discussion on matters that are contentious, matters that are cross-cutting, because we have no time to waste. To waste as a government, we have no time. We have also no time to waste as a people, as officers of government, because this opportunity that God has given us is a privilege to serve. We need at every one time, every moment that you are in, to be reminding yourself that this is a position that you are holding on trust. If it was possible for the 54 million Kenyans to sit in this office of head of public service, they have every right and a constitutional right for that matter to be here. But since it is not possible, that trust to run the affairs of this office has been given to me. It has been given to you as a PS, as a CEO, as a chairman, as a member of the board, as a head of legal, head of audit. Therefore, we need to thank God for having those positions within our mandate, and we have to deliver and make sure that this country is a country that everyone would want to come and pay mark. And therefore, next month, on either 27 or 28, we are going to have, and His Excellency the President has convened a National Accountability Summit, a summit that all arms of government will be present, all independent commissions, all chairs, all board members, all CEOs, all heads of departments, principal secretaries, CSS. Those people have been given responsibility to oversight. Anything and everything will sit there because it will be a defining day. It's a day that will separate those who want to proceed and mean well for this country and those perhaps who are tired and they have other agendas to give way. This is in line with the President's address of the State of the Nation address last year in November and the end year address to the nation, that this year is a year of accountability, and this year is not a year of procedures, not a year of complaints, but it is a year of impact. We have to measure the impact, and therefore, as an office that has been given mandate to implement His Excellency the President's directives, we are going to take charge of the processes of ensuring that accountability will be supreme, accountability will be one element that will be talked about from this year going forward. And therefore, the roadmap to Singapore is not about copying another country. It is about embedding discipline, integrity, and performance in how we run our state corporations. Therefore, I invite each of us to study the transformation spearheaded by Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. It will remind us that national transformation is never accidental. It is driven by decisive, consistent, and disciplined leadership. Colleagues, the revitalization phase has to come to some extent stabilized all our state corporations and state departments. The next phase requires enforcement, courage, and sustained leadership discipline. Kenya's transformation will be built in our systems, our processes, and our daily decisions. The journey to Singapore is real, and we want to see Kenya moving to the first world in our lifetime. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you a very, very nice afternoon, very fruitful year, and let us work together to make Kenya great. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, sir. Just for record purposes, we wish to register the apologies from PS Harry Kimutai and PS Caroline Karogo, who are not able to attend due to exigencies of work that they'll explain to you. Equally, sir, as we are coming to a conclusion, we wish to notify members that the presentations and the recording will be sent to the email addresses that was used by yourselves to register for this particular session. And finally, sir, is that the comments, including the compliments that have been sent to your offices, we wish to confirm that we'll be able to print and bring to the attention of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. So I wish to close with a word of prayer. Please bow our heads for a word of prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you for today's webinar. Lord, continue giving us courage, discipline, and the wisdom to be able to lift Kenya to standards of excellence, integrity, and service to humanity. I pray this, trusting and believing in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.